People with Mac computers love to play video games too. I'm Falcon, and today on GameRanks, here's the best Mac games of 2017. Number 10 is Torment, Tides of Numenera, the thematic successor to Planescape Torment. Looks pretty great on account it is a single-player isometric CRPG, continuing the legacy of frankly one of the most critically acclaimed RPGs of the last decade. This game does such a great job of establishing so much atmosphere, character, and story within a science fantasy realm. It's very much a sort of thinking player's RPG though, and while there is most certainly drama in the game itself, it's not the most dramatic thing you've ever played. Still, incredibly interesting lore, a story that progresses very well, albeit maybe a little bit slow in the beginning, and all of the different elements come together very well, but maybe not quite as good as Planescape. I'm not saying that as an insult because Planescape is a really tough act to follow, and this is right up there. It's just not the kind of triumph. But on the other hand, are you really needing that kind of a triumph now that the genre has sort of been revived? This is a very good game. It's a hell of a lot of fun, and it's very easy to get absorbed in. Number 9 is Telltale's Guardians of the Galaxy, which, although it has a couple of technical issues, captures a lot of the more comic-based lore of the Guardians, but retains the more movie-like humor. It very much takes the same approach as other Telltale adventure games, so if you enjoy those at all and know your way around them, you pretty much know your way around how to play this game. However, it does a very good job of telling an original story that's well acted and fun, doesn't seem out of place if you've seen the movie, but also includes material for the more hardcore comics fans. Number 8 is Yooka Laylee, the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, and really captures everything that was fun about the Banjo-Kazooie games. But it does widen the scope even further to more rare property, including some minecart sequences that will remind you of Donkey Kong 64 and Donkey Kong Country. Now, the strength of this game is also kind of its weakness. It's a 90s game, period. I mean, it's a much prettier 90s game. There's absolutely nothing about this game that will make you go, these people really haven't upped their game since the Rare days, have they? No, it's fantastic looking, but at its heart, it's really a 1990s platformer. And whether you enjoy it definitely depends on whether or not you enjoy those platformers. Now, there are little things that are much tighter than those old games. Player speed, for instance, is significantly better if you ask me, but it doesn't progress in any really large ways. That being said, it's not just a nostalgia trip, the level design is really damn good, and if you look at Steam, it's a very popular game, so hopefully this will reignite some interest into the genre, and it picks up kind of where everything left off, because these are good games. And at the end of the day, of course they could evolve more, they're from the 90s, but they're still fun as hell. Number 7, Frozen Synapse 2 is a sequel to the strategy game. They're calling it open world tactics, and I would say that's a pretty apt description from what I've seen of it. You get a massive open world that's randomly generated, and you make your way through this phenomenally cool looking open world, tactics style. The sequel is going to be adding a lot more unit classes as well as stats, as well as stealth gameplay that will allow you to sneak into buildings, as well as more realistic objects that make the levels a little bit more situationally realistic. Number 6 is Everspace, which is kind of like an arcade shooter with depth. It's an extremely responsive, gorgeous space shooter that manages not to give you repetitive environments, as well as a lot of action and interesting experiences, while also giving you the resource management end of things. I've seen comparisons with Descent, but in open space. I've seen comparisons with Rogue, but I think it doesn't do it justice. This is its own game, and frankly, I think it succeeds where a lot of games like No Man's Sky totally fail. It actually gives you an addictive gameplay loop that you want to do. Number 5, Night in the Woods, which is really just a phenomenal game. The art style, the themes that it deals with, the themes which include dealing with the protagonist's personal issues, which include a dissociative disorder, in a town that is gradually getting in worse and worse shape because its coal economy is falling apart. This game is so unique in that it manages to capture what I think is basically the United States of America right now if you don't live in a big city. It's one of those games that really handles a lot of things, and it does it all very well while being very stylish and just incredibly artfully good as far as what it looks like. Number 4, Hollow Knight is a really unique looking hand-drawn Metroidvania game that manages to stay true to its genre while bringing some interesting things in inventory management and weapons, as well as being dense with character. If there's anything you can tell from just looking at it is that this game manages to be different the entire time, but with that striking familiarity of a Metroidvania. In some cases, I think it feels a little bit more like Castlevania than Metroid. The combat kind of reflects a more short-range fighting than Metroid can be, but it's one of those games that plays very well. It's quite responsive. It does what it sets out to do. And as somebody who loves a good Metroidvania, this is right up my alley. Number 3, Darkest Dungeon: The Crimson Cord, an expansion for the popular Gothic RPG. The expansion adds mechanics to the games, namely the Crimson Curse, which forces you to make some difficult decisions and needing to give various characters blood to keep them alive. The game has 5 new bosses, which require different tactics on account now you have to give people blood, a new dungeon region, and it doesn't play around with the maps. This is a very, very big game, so if you feel like it's just going to be a little expansion, you're wrong. It's mechanic based and it gives you a whole lot of new game in order to play, and the new mechanics make the experience even more interesting. Number 2 is Strafe, a first-person shooter that gives you, well, cutting-edge graphics for 1996. But frankly, the graphics are a little bit better than 1996. A little bit. It's an FPS roguelike that randomly generates levels every time you die, and is one of those games where you can tell if you will like it directly from the footage. I love it. It is fantastic. I really enjoy the hell out of it. It reminds me of a time when first-person shooters were, well, they were still kind of gestating, except for it has a lot of the control advances that we have today, which is good on account they control way better today than they used to. It's got cool, colorful graphics, and more importantly, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And finally, number 1 is Fortnite, which is often described by people both close to the game and people who have observed the game as Minecraft meets Left 4 Dead. The game revolves around getting resources and building forts and defending them. Now, I would say it's probably not wrong to describe this game as Minecraft with actual enemies and a competent action element. It plays a lot like a multiplayer shooter, however, it seems as though you could play it entirely single player and have it be incredibly interesting still. What I think makes this seem interesting to me is that it has goals, enemies, and actual things to do in it, while also giving you these sandbox survival elements that make Minecraft and games of the like work out very well. I think this is probably going to be a really big game for the next several years, considering once it comes out of early access, it is going to be free to play, and it just looks good. Which of these are you most looking forward to? Leave us a comment, and if you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now would be a good time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on GameRanks.